recognizable brands like Lagunitas. You can look it up right now. Hi-Fi Sessions. It's got 2 milligrams of CBD and 2 milligrams of THC per can.
Yeah, that's a very low dose. That's like a really
Exactly.
good entry-level dose for people who don't have such high tolerances. And it's really meant to be kind of consumed in the same way that you would drink throughout an evening, as kind of a buildable small dose. And we're like drunk. So she looks at me with horror and she goes, "Oh no, I didn't open the window." And I'm like, "It's nothing. It's nothing." So we wrap up and we go back to the casino. And soon some security guards approach a situation where like two men are about to get in a fight. And we're like standing around, like ready to see what's going to happen with this fight. And security walks up and we just casually are like, "Oh, are you here to see the action?" And they're like, "No, actually, we're here to see you."
Are we having fun? Hell yeah.
I'm Steph. And I'm Kayla. And we're two best friends coping with life the only way we know how. One adventure and a cocktail at a time.
Damn, Steph, this pasta is moist.
Oh my God. Ow. I was literally choking on my drink. That was off guard. It's not complete without chowing down on some dinner.
Got a little pasta. Stephanie says, "I never eat the leftovers."
Look at us growing up, eating leftovers. Parker, eat our leftovers.
Who would have thought?
What kind of pasta is it? Let's share with the group.
I'm getting angel hair vibes.
Oh, okay.
Could be a spaghetti. But
a little lemon, a little butter. What's going on with the flavor?
We definitely have a beef red sauce going on here with plenty of onion, garlic. I don't know. I know it was made fresh, but I was at work the night it was made.
Nice.
And it was going to go uneaten. So I'm like, let's finish this thing.
Nothing says adulting like eating leftovers by choice.
Absolutely.
Perfect. So for all of you that haven't listened to our previous episodes, we have a special guest host and a special guest. So today we are introducing Mark as our official co-host, step-in, creative content specialist, many titles. And Stephanie sadly could not be in for this recording. Actually, she might make an appearance.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Okay, I can hear you.
Great.
I was like, I can kind of read your lips, and this is kind of funny.
I'm going to turn your beeping off.
Yay.
Don't beep me again.
So Mark was just like finishing dinner too. So
cool.
No, it worked perfectly.
Great.
And while you were off, so I guess Stephanie, my co-host, made that pasta that he was eating. And he goes, he knew I was recording. So he goes, Stephanie, this pasta is moist. As I'm taking a sip of White Claw and it got lodged in my throat and I'm like trying not to spit on the the laptop. So this is a great environment.
Kayla, I missed your whole bit.
I know. We'll have it in the recording.
If the pasta's not moist, count me out.
Count me out.
All right, fine. They're just buttery. We'll stick with that one.
Yeah. I forgot I've been there.
Athens, Georgia.
Ooh.
Little hazy IPA.
I love
high and hazy IPA.
How perfect. So welcome once again. This is Are We Having Fun? And like I said, we've got Mark on the podcast and we have a special host. And I swear I'm just reading this exactly how she wants it. This bitch. This bitch is an account manager for the Green Street Festival happening in LA. She works out of the Green Street building, a 7-story cannabis co-working space in downtown Los Angeles. She also founded Aim and Fire, a field marketing agency servicing many of the same clients. And her name is Tara Falk. Woo!
Yeah, Tara! Love it.
Everything she said is true. So I just got home from the Green Street building. It was a typical Monday in an office building where I am permitted to bring my bong to work. So things are good over there. I can wander out of the office into the office at any point and just openly consume cannabis, which is amazing. It's really kind of a groundbreaking space in this space, if you will.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So like Mark's in Florida right now. I'm in Minnesota. So that is unheard of for us. That is like that's like some next level shit right there. And
Truly.
we are so excited to have you because not to say, oh my God, yes, we love weed, but it really is incredible how the industry has been blooming, that's funny, for the last few years. And I've repped a few like MedMen and certain companies like that over the years. But I would love to get your input on this kind of new realm. There's so much we're going to talk about in this episode. And without explaining it all at once, I wanted to flow. We should just jump right into it. We have so many questions for you, starting with the Green Street Festival. All right. Because explain what that is and it definitely explain who's going to be there and your role that you play in it.
Cool. So the Green Street Festival is the inaugural first consumer facing event that's being hosted by the same folks who founded Hall of Flowers, which is the main business to business conference that they have out in Palm Springs. This event happens a couple of times a year, and it's just a huge opportunity for brands to connect with other companies. I mean, everything from seeds to soil to genetics and analytics and marketing companies that specifically service cannabis clients. So really just a ton of fun and an opportunity to just sort of connect professionally with other people out here advancing this industry. And the Green Street Festival is more of a consumer facing event. And our acts for this event are Juicy J, we've got Harry Mack, and this event is hosted by Gary V, and many of you guys might know who that is. He's Vayner Media. He's very inspiring, very cool guy, and we're going to be having a lot of kind of panels and hosting some really important discussions about what's happening in cannabis and what new advancements that we are trying to make, and in many cases, failing to make, and meeting great barriers in our attempts. So Green Street Festival is going to be the first event of its kind, one way or another. And we are just sort of piecing together what that's going to look like still as we, navigate the often uneven and uneasy ground of cannabis.
Is Green Street, I was just looking into it while, as you were talking about it, this is the first one, or they've done this before?
This is the first event. Green Street is a cannabis-focused agency. It's definitely kind of top in class, headed up by some really kind of legacy OGs, as they would be referred to. And they are kind of taking this all really big, really fast. The office building downtown is a huge development. Green Street is now kind of a physical, tangible entity and staple of downtown. It's anchored by the Gusto Green restaurant on the bottom floor. And then we have 6 stories above of office space and activation space where different brands set up, and we host networking events. There's one called Donuts and Pizza that we do every 2 weeks or so. And we just open the building up to industry folks to come in and, sign some deals and get some business done. But it's also just a really unique environment because, like I said, it's consumption friendly. So everybody is really kind of fully immersed in the culture in which we're working, which is really cool.
I'm in.
Yeah. Asked about my role at Green Street. I am an account manager, so I am working directly with all of the brands that are sponsoring the event and supporting the event in any way. So our brand partners, exhibitors, and sponsors at the Green Street Festival communicate with me to make sure that they get what they need to out of our event, and that everybody gets what they need to pull something like this off, because we have a lot of dispensary partners, a lot of outside vendors, and dozens of brands signed on at this point. And there's some really heavy hitters for sure.
Because that being said, dozens of brands, are there sometimes, because you have heavy hitters, you have some that are like the fakers, and you kind of have to weed out those from the right ones. And that's where everybody can kind of come together maybe and at least talk about, hey, this is what you probably should stay away from, or maybe this is a brand that you could actually trust.
You know, it's very interesting, because there's kind of a lot of like legacy versus corporate talk in cannabis, like who's here to make a buck and who's really here because they want to expand the industry and really create change and be part of something positive. And we often grapple with that question. And I think that we really need everyone on both sides of the aisle to pull off something like this, you know, because these brands that, you know, you may question whether or not you can quote unquote trust these brands, like any who's going to support us and offer us sponsorship in the form of, you know, monetary support or product donation or coming on as a food vendor, you know, the proof is in the pudding. You know, we trust that kind of support. And we have a lot of brands that are, you know, part of major brand houses that own tons and tons of brands, and everything down to family businesses with teams of 3 or 4 people who are just sort of launching their brands and hoping to get a little bit of recognition and market share at an event like this too. So it's really a little bit of everything, and we're very inclusive, and we want to work to make sure that anybody who wants to be a part of the event sort of has an in. There are definitely like all levels of sponsorship, from, I mean, branding the trash cans and the charging stations to major stage branding, you know, on either side of Juicy J while he's performing, which I'm so psyched about. I love Juicy J.
Me too. I love Juicy J. That is awesome.
Dude, I wish
Kayla and I agree. All of us agree.
I was going to say, I wish we could be there, honestly. It's happening so fast though. But what I would love to have you share, if you can, is as some of these clients that you get to work with, I know they're kind of, like you said, groundbreaking. They might have bigger umbrella companies that they're part of, but they're really doing something new in food and beverage, or, you know, just like it goes further than just the weed industry.
One that comes to mind is CannaCraft. We have Lagunitas beverage that they make. It's called Hi-Fi Sessions, and it is a delicious kind of a bubbly THC drink, but it's hoppy. It's from Lagunitas, which is a fantastic beer. And I was surprised that this is the first beverage that I've tried that's a little bit hoppy. So it's pretty unique. I'm very familiar with a lot of kind of seltzer-based THC drinks, but like you said, there are a lot of national brands, non-cannabis brands, that are beginning to enter the cannabis space, which is really fascinating and cool for you and I, because we've represented so many CPG brands in, you know, more traditional industries, a lot of food and beverage. I know we had a blast with Twisted Tea in Iowa. Shout out. But yeah, I am really enjoying seeing a lot of, you know, household brand names start to align with cannabis, because that's really what's going to let us take these events to the next level. Because every major festival that you attend, there's a huge alcohol component, and we're headed in a direction where, in that same way, there will always be a cannabis component, because it's a great alternative.
Yes. Do you have anything to bounce off that, Mark, before we switch?
Absolutely. That's so cool that you said that, because like recognizable brands like Lagunitas, you can look it up right now. Hi-Fi Sessions. It's got 2 milligrams of CBD and 2 milligrams of THC per can.
Yeah, that's a very low dose. That's like a really good
Exactly.
level dose for people who don't have such high tolerances. And it's really meant to be kind of consumed in the same way that you would drink throughout an evening, as kind of a buildable small dose.
Because a lot
And
of people nowadays, they seem to like have to want to drink one or two or three of them. So then that's 8-10 milligrams,
yep,
which is basically
which is about, the equivalent of like one edible dose, which people regard as something that has the potential to give you like a really heavy body high and help you kind of rest and wind down at the end of the day. So it's not something that's meant to like knock you off your feet right away, but neither is one drink or a glass of wine, so it's more accessible to people who aren't traditionally smokers to understand and help them sort of like enter with a product that's more accessible for them.
Yeah, and recognizable, absolutely too. Like that's really cool.
Totally.
Yes.
Labs has a seltzer now. They've got a fantastic THC seltzer, and that brand recognition is key. I mean, everybody's had a PBR, and I think a lot of the people who may have a negative stigma of cannabis are going to be tempted very soon with brands like Pabst, and another brand that I am pretty close with at Green Street called Country. Actually, I've got it right here. They make a 1-to-1 CBD THC joint, and they market it as light cannabis. So in the way that we have a Bud Light, like we now have a light joint, and you can, market this to your everyman, and it's much more accessible than your, 30% THC infused baby Jeters, there's
yeah. Oh man, that is so cool, because I mean, like, stigma aside, we know that like alcohol is such an art. When you take away the let's get fucked up, when you take away that aspect from it, it's so cool to see. I mean, like you said, we've repped so many brands, and each brand has their own process and things that they're proud of. And it's so cool to see another industry kind of just kicking it off the ground before our very eyes and making it, like you said, accessible to everybody.
I mean, 1/3 of people who drink alcohol want to drink less alcohol. And what do you think they're going to do instead? This is it's like a great opportunity to give people a better option, in my opinion, because there are a lot of negative side effects that come with alcohol. And I'm not going to sit here and say that smoking healthy, but there are so many other methods of consumption now, and cannabinoids are healthy. I mean, this is the reason that we prescribe this medicinally for so many different purposes. And I think people are just starting to understand scientifically that THC is like kind of fun, like everyone's kind of down for the high. But what you're really looking for are the benefits of the other cannabinoids, the CBD, and, everything that gives you like anti-inflammatory and mood and sleep and digestion regulation and anti-anxiety properties and things like that. I mean, you would get that from, CBD all the way. So it's nice to kind of diversify what you're consuming. I definitely have become someone who does it all. Like, I wasn't really into the edibles and the drinks at first. I was always just a smoker. But then when I actually got those samples through representing brands and started using them, I realized it's completely different. The methods of absorption are different. Like, the time it takes to hit is different. And for example, the drinks, it's much more of like a social, bubbly, active high, like drinking alcohol is, which is very fascinating to me because I didn't expect that to be so vastly different.
Wow, that is so cool.
Funny saying all that and like hearing that, because like living out here in Florida, not being in LA, like,
yeah,
how much so that could change society and how it's going to change society. But now if what you can't do is drink a THC seltzer that has 2% THC and CBD in it, and that's what you want to do. You know how many kids, you know what I mean, are not going to go down that other path, throw up, have a hangover, and like alcohol.
A lot of violence and aggression is associated with heavy alcohol drinking. And I just think that in so many ways, just a way better option.
Nowadays, this opioid crisis, I've been affected by it. Everybody in America has been affected by it. So
Absolutely. And I think that just wide scale decriminalization of, all substances that people are using to manage other issues is a really good idea. I think that cannabis is really just the beginning. And at the space where I work at Green Street, there are a lot of people who are heavily invested and kind of on the cutting edge of, psychedelic research and the possibility of legislation changing in that area soon, just the same. And I think that cannabis was one thing. And because cannabis already sort of broke those doors open, psychedelics will just be able to walk right through.
Yeah. It's like start with one thing and then build on it.
Yeah, very closely behind the walk-in with like small doses of mushrooms, stuff like that. I know for sure that people that are already using that, like microdosing mushrooms, can change people's, like outlook on life, like depression. It can cure anxiety. It can cure, treat specifically, and I definitely believe in that.
Absolutely. Yep.
This is very awesome. I love this.
It is very awesome. This is not like any other. I can't name a single podcast that's talking about this right now. I can't.
I mean, it's definitely cutting edge. It's definitely getting the word out there. So we'll try.
I listened to some very interesting. I listened to a lot of along the lines of what we were just discussing. I listened to a lot of drug podcasts about people who struggle with addiction and all of their crazy experiences. And cannabis is, like we said, a great alternative to all of those things.
Yeah, definitely. I have opinions on that, on the way alcohol affects people.
Totally.
But yet here I am with my White Claw.
Well, very soon, I'm sure White Claw will follow in the footsteps of before them, and you'll be able to sip your THC claws.
That's true. Especially when I'm, in LA in like 6 months for good. Can't wait.
Very excited. Yeah, I can't wait to involve you in some of these events when you get out here. It's going to be a good time.
Yeah. And that's a great segue into kind of how you got to this position. And I met Tara in person. She's not just a random, although that would be, it's like street cred if I could find some random people to be on the pod. But we did meet at a Twisted Tea event that we were both repping in Iowa, and it kind of just grew from there. And dude, we've done every event on this planet. I mean, the first thing I thought of when you explained Green Street was this farmers festival that that a friend of ours, Gabe, and I drove to from Minnesota to Nebraska to represent this corn company. And all the farmers came out to talk seeds and business. And that's how I compared your event in my mind.
We're like the corn fest, only it's not corn.
It's weed.
No organic carrots, organic seeds.
Great. That's great. I love it.
And feel free to, I see she's getting started in here. Yes. This second half, this is where we go deep.
This is one. Like I said, it's 1-to-1, guys. It's not very heavy. That's that 1-to-1 CBD THC. I would give this to my mother.
There we go. I would definitely give it to my mom.
My mom always hits me every now and then. She goes, "Hey, did you get me one of those little chocolates from Colorado?" If it wasn't so demonized over the last, 50, 70 years, 100 years, whatever, it's like they would have had a different outlook on it. My dad grew up, like 60s, 70s, 80s. There's a lot of people that have this outlook on it, and it's either one side or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a strong opinion either way.
But both sides are okay with alcohol, which went through it and came out of it, like prohibition and all that. So it's we could talk about this forever. They've been talking about it forever.
For real.
Absolutely. We'll be talking about it for a long time yet. My little brother, speaking of moms, he ruined my mom. He gave her a pot brownie that was way too strong, and
she's sleeping.
ate that whole thing. and about an hour later was requesting to be taken to the hospital, et cetera, et cetera. And, off, but not for a long time. She was like too high to sleep. So that he did such a disservice to my cause by doing her so dirty, because I would have given her a 2 to 5 milligram Celtic soda and would have had a bang in time.
And that's the problem with it sometimes, like some people don't know.
They don't know where
it take the right dosage. And it's not that, like, maybe your brother just may have gave her the wrong amount, absolutely, because he wasn't thinking about it, or
homemade. You never know.
Some people, they're like, they go to Colorado and they take 40 milligrams or 50 milligrams for their first time. They don't know that they should just be taking like 5 to 10 or something and chilling out for a little bit.
Yep. Well, I think and that 10 milligram standard dose is kind of based on like, an average, like strongish weed. It's like one hit, like hitting the
bong.
weed one time, a bong, a joint, or whatever, is approximately comparable to your 10 milligram dose of an edible. But that doesn't mean that it's going to hit you the same. It's a lot like a beer not affecting you the same way that a beer, same way that a glass of wine or a shot is going to. I mean, it's the same alcohol content, but what it's going to do to your body and the effects are going to be very different.
Yeah. Well, I was laughing because your story just reminded me of, everybody has that story of an edible that was homemade that just went wrong. Like, and my co-host, which is Mark's girlfriend, she and I were roommates in college. So we had that experience together. If she was on the show right now, she would definitely be talking about an experience we had where it just, when somebody is giving you something and you don't know what you're getting into, and you're on your own, like, you got to know what you're doing. You can't just like jump in.
You'll get through.
Well, yes, you will get through it.
The only way out.
You're gonna get through it. You're gonna get through it. Just remember.
You'll just remember it forever. So
before I lived here, I can relate to you guys very much. I mean, before I lived here, I lived in Minneapolis for 5 years. It's from Wisconsin, and I have been cited for possession of marijuana. I've been issued a citation for possession of marijuana, which is absolutely ludicrous to me now, because I grow a certain number of plants out on my patio and have a lot of weed unproblematically. It's astounding.
It just,
Funny story. Did you know that Gabe and I were cited at a job for weed?
No.
Very good story. Okay, so Gabriel is another coworker of Kayla and I's that we worked with on Twisted Tea in Iowa, and she and I went to a casino in the middle of nowhere and up north in Minnesota called the Shooting Star Casino in Monoman, Minnesota. It's on a reservation, and we had a repeat booking to work as showgirls at the casino. So we've got the full thing. We got the tassels, we got the headdress, everything. And we're a bit of a spectacle. Like Tracy Bird, the country music artist, is like the headlining act. He has the song called The Watermelon Crawl. It's absolutely ridiculous. I highly recommend it.
Yes.
And his entire band of Southern conservative gentlemen were there. So naturally, we hang with the band. We go to the bar and we're just shooting Cavassier with this band of Southern gentlemen, Tracy Bird band. And there's like 2 or 3 nights of this whole ordeal. And naturally, Gabe and I, like, we brought some weed. It's in the car. It's in our room, and we get a little too drunk and we're going to go outside and smoke. But Gabe decides we should just smoke out the window of the hotel room, get the little toilet paper sploof. Is that what they call it?
A spoof.
A spoof. There you go. It's a spoof. So we made a spoof, and we figured that was going to save us. But then we're about halfway through our whatever we rolled, and Gabe realizes she didn't even open the window. And we're like, drunk. So she looks at me with horror and she goes, "Oh no, I didn't open the window." And I'm like, it's nothing. So we wrap up and we go back to the casino. And soon some security guards approach a situation where like 2 men are about to get in a fight. And we're like standing around, like ready to see what's going to happen with this fight. And security walks up And we just casually are like, oh, are you here to see the action? And they're like, no, actually, we're here to see you. And we're like, oh God. So the security guards are like, showgirls, please come with us. And in front of so many people who like recognize us as the showgirls from out of town, like we are appearing as like big girls. They think we're like dead serious, you know. They don't know that we just came up from Minneapolis. Like to the patrons of the Shooting Star, we are the Shooting Stars, you know.
Yeah.
So, security has come to escort us out of the bar after we've heavily drinking with the band for like 2 days straight in like clear public view. So we marched through the hotel with them, and they're like, do you know what this is about? And I'm like, oh yeah, I know what this is. And they're like, well, so what is this about? And I was like, there's weed in there, you know. Like I pretty much was like, I know what this is about. Essentially, they told us that the dogs, that they got complaints that the floor smelled like weed and the dogs hit on our room. So they bring there and they, you know, demand we fork it over. But what we did is we gave them my bowl and Gabe's weed, and we still had Gabe's bowl and my weed after like handing it over. So they confine us to our rooms. They tell us we like are essentially banned from the property, but because we've been drinking, we can't leave that night. So they cite us, they take half our weed in pieces, and they leave us with our wine. We still have weed, we still have a bowl, and we proceed to like, you know, party.
Sounds
it
like
off.
a W. It sounds like a W.
It was a bit I mean, we lost a recurring booking. We could have been at the Mono Casino every year for the rest of our lives, but it's one of the best stories that I have. We had an absolute blast. And even the conservative Southern gentleman expressed remorse for the fact that things were the way they were.
Yeah.
They thought it was very wrong that we needed to be made an example of and marched through a casino with some security officers simply because we made a sploof.
That is great. And look at you now. Heading a cannabis festival.
In this day and age, that could never be me.
That is such a great story. You know, it's like you gotta go through some rough patches to get some success. And
we were embarrassed. We were very embarrassed.
Yeah.
It was embarrassing.
That is a great story, though. That is so great.
I wish you could have. You would have really enjoyed.
I wish
we were engaged in political debate with like all of these like country musicians.
I kind of wish I was there because I can get down to the watermelon crawl. In Florida, we have a dance to it. We get literally on the ground.
You know the song.
I know the song very well.
Look at me like
no
watermelon.
I'm laughing because the band 100% was like so about everything that night, and it just was a fluke, basically.
They were about it. They were deeply about it.
Definitely would have been a different story in California.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm actually repping these White Claw syrups right now for the rest of the month. And I have so many that they are toppling over in my little beer fridge because it's too packed in there now.
My stash out. I'm currently out of stash. But
oh no.
Very soon.
It's like a hit or miss. You know, you never know when you're going to be stuck with a bunch of product that you don't necessarily want or.
Oh, I still have a stash of energy drinks I'll probably never go through.
I'm probably
people just think I'm generous. They think that I thought of them, and I'm like, they don't know that they're the fool.
It's the secrets of the event industry. I repped so much Tito's that my friends were like, stop giving us Tito's. Like, we don't want vodka.
Oh my god. Oh yeah.
It was funny. I had a Tito's earlier, Tito's and lemonade.
Nice. Now that you've shared that story, people kind of go through the hard times to get some success. But I want you to like kind of go into your journey of entrepreneurship, because obviously you're not only an account manager, you're not only a showgirl, but there's more to you.
Yeah, there is so much more.
So much more there.
Yeah, so, similarly to your situation, I really do it all. I do whatever I want to do on any given day, whatever is calling to me. And very recently, one of those gigs, not so recently, about a year and a half ago, one of those gigs, I was working as a brand representative in the field in dispensaries for one of these seltzer brands, which will remain unnamed. And I was promoted to manage their field marketing team in Los Angeles. So I managed a team of about 30 people, scheduling events, everything from like launches with celebrity endorsers to investors, parties, to fun community events and groups that we would sponsor and bring product for, like sound baths, the craziest stuff. It was really fun. And eventually I wound up terminating that contract to go do my own thing. And the program I was working on was ultimately eliminated. So all of those representatives, all of the field managers they hired in each market, each legal market, which is about 7, they were in Boston and Nevada. They were down in San Diego, in NorCal, and in Chicago. And all of those markets were kind of shut down, the program that we had been working on at least. So no more ambassadors in the fields, but I'm glad that I kind of turned in a different direction prior to that. But it was kind of like a breakup. It was definitely a professional breakup, and it had been kind of a dream job, and the things that we had been promised at that stage of kind of a startup that's really growing and raising a lot of capital and expanding to other markets and expanding internationally, to have those things be really kind of not true and just be essentially used with 150 other people as kind of like means to an end, and sort of manipulated about greater opportunity and hiring from within and all of those things. It really just inspired me to put myself in a position where that can't happen again, where I cannot lose my job. I can only lose a client. And I think that was really the reason that I kind of kicked it into gear, because I've always wanted to sort of do what we have always done for our clients, but to build our own business versus someone else's. So cannabis turned out to be the most welcoming industry that I ever could have attempted to do such a thing in. Mm-hmm. I've always sort of had my eye on doing this through the work that you and I have done in the past, but cannabis was really somewhere that it immediately became plausible, and the need is more severe because they don't have the kind of corporate structure, and they haven't worked out the kinks and sort of made everything so uniform as other industries have already had a chance to do. So there's just a lot of opportunity for someone with that contextual knowledge that's also really into weed to come in and sort of tell everybody like, hey, psst, this is how we do this, as a brand and a corporation, the structure of, a marketing agency to a production house to a staffing agency to the BAs in the field, and how all of those people interact with one another is still kind of off the radar for a lot of the people in this industry. And it's been really cool to sort of show up and just meet needs. And I'm getting good response and lots of referrals off the bat to some great companies. So very, very lucky.
Wow.
Like I was going to say, you're definitely like at the front line of this. Like it's an evolving, like you said, they're building a hierarchy or how this should be done, and it hasn't been pioneered before, and you're pioneering it. You're part of that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it feels like something important. Every day it feels really rewarding to be doing something that nobody has done before. I don't think that I've ever been in a position where I've really felt like I'm amongst the first people to do something, and the community is really overwhelmingly cool. The fact that everybody's kind of like taking these steps together is fascinating, because it, as competitive as it is and as kind of like saturated as it's getting with brands that want to compete and, sort of go up against one another. There's just kind of this mentality that there's more than enough to go around, that the demand is only going to raise, that the revenue being generated is only going to raise, and that we can all kind of collaborate a lot more than we can compete. And that's what's so cool about like Green Street and a lot of the companies that I work with, is that technically, as an event producer and a marketing agency, they are my direct competition. And another client of mine that they are a client of is also their direct competition. So we all are working with each other on different aspects that we're more specialized for. Because what we do, like I said, they do mostly B2B events. My client Hazy LA does mostly product launches and grand openings, and they do a lot of creative work and build out and production and things of that nature. And I'm mostly retail promotions, influencer campaigns, and ambassador staffing. So even though
there's a lot of moving parts on it. There's a lot of moving parts to it.
And we need each other all the time. So it's just a lot of mutual referrals. And
are you guys hiring? Are you hiring?
Mark wants to move to LA now.
No, I'm just saying, put it out there in the world. Everyone's hiring right now.
Yeah. Oh, they are. And there are just a lot of opportunities for people to get involved, at the entry level, but just a lot of need in greater opportunity too. There is a lot of room for advancement, and a lot of these companies will kind of dangle it in front of your face. And because there's a lot of outside investment involved and venture capital, there's a lot of really shisty things happening. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of people who don't fit in with the culture and the community and are really kind of a detriment and a hindrance to it, who are hanging out here and want a piece because the jobs may pay well and there may be kind of the promise of a dream here. But there's a lot of what I've noticed recently is that the thing about cannabis is that you are serving a consumer who traditionally is not a big fan of the man. So in cannabis, you don't really get away with that kind of behavior, because the culture and community is such that we will immediately call it out. And not just one person, there are always many people in the room that are ready to say what needs to be said. And I really appreciate that. I think that that's one of the first places that I have felt like I'm able to show up authentically, because I can't really bite my tongue when I see things like that happening. And I need things to make sense, and I need things to even out in the grander scheme and be as fair as they possibly can be. And I think it's finally a setting where the risk does not outweigh the reward of
just to be clear though, you mean by like when you see things like that in the industry that are unsavory, you mean like fake?
I think I know it. I think I know what she means, because Tara will have your back.
I also mean things as fundamental as labor laws. I mean, culture. I mean, working 65, 70 hours a week when you're only 40, under the guise of, if you don't like it, get out. Like there are a lot of, grind bros and girl bosses who really get off on that shit. But I think that we need to set a higher standard of living before we set a higher standard of output, and as much as there's like work to be done and we all like do it when we get up and go, like I am not going to tolerate that. And I think that there's a lot of attempts to exploit people, the same as there is in any other industry. We've got a real problem with that in society at large. And I'm just experiencing a lot of support from my peers and the people that I'm working with when something is really clearly off the map,
Yeah,
there's
we
a lot
support you. We definitely support you. And this is a ton of insight into this world that I don't know if I speak for both of us, Kayla, but I did not know very much about. So there's a lot going on the West Coast that's not yet come to the East Coast.
Yeah, East Coast is a little behind in a lot of aspects. Or Florida is. New York's got its own thing going on, but it's ahead of the curve in other aspects. But I if there's one thing I know about Tara, when I met her, she will say something. If something is off and you're working with Tara, she will make sure that things are right, because they do. I mean, in any industry, there's always instances where they might take advantage for a lunch break, for a, you know, something as simple as meeting your human needs. And
absolutely. And it's not acceptable. And the way that different people are treated in different settings also becomes really apparent, and the kinds of people that are put into leadership positions, and, you know, the types of rates that we pay different types of people is like pretty transparent sometimes. And I think that it's going to take a lot more people really calling those things as they see them for people to, you know, stop with business as usual, because this really can't be business as usual. Like, there's a lot to be compensated for in cannabis. I mean, there are dozens of thousands of people incarcerated for nonviolent cannabis related offenses. And the fact that I can make a living and have a glorious time working in this industry in California is deeply unsettling in a lot of ways, because there are people who don't see the light of day for far less than I've done in the last. So
it's a different world.
A lot of complicated aspects to what's happening here. And I think it's really important that everybody acknowledge those things and sort of elevate accordingly, you know, as much.
Absolutely.
A lot of like risk for cannabis to start getting snapped up by, you know, the other major conglomerates that own hundreds of brands. You know, like if they want to, they have the ability to immediately take complete control over what's happening here. And that's like a real risk. And I think it's going to take a lot of solidarity to stop that from happening. And it's going to need people that are willing to hold out for like the vision of like a better society. You know, we don't want this to turn into, you know, tobacco or alcohol. This is a medicine. Like, this is something that really helps people. And I think that it needs to be treated accordingly.
Yeah, that's such a good way to put it. I mean, I think that whoever hears this, for the majority, it's something that people aren't knowledgeable on. And I think that's an important point to make. And that kind of sums up everything, especially everything that you're doing and everything Green Street is doing, is just making the point that one is not going to happen overnight. And there's so many, like what Mark was saying, there's so many different moving parts. There's that, but there's also so many complications and things that you have to think about in order to do something the right way. This is just my opinion, but if you want to do it the right way, it's not going to happen overnight. And yeah, you could get a lot of money into it and boom, overnight celebrity, marijuana, you know, if marijuana was a person, but like, that's not what marijuana is about, you know? So it's going to take time, but it's so nice to see your perspective on it, and the way that the right people in the industry are making it something positive and doing it the right way.
Yeah, I mean, somebody has to try, and inevitably people will fail. You know, I mean, we've experienced some high setbacks and some failures recently related to, you know, the contextual state of, you know, cannabis and its relationship with local and state and federal governments. There's still a lot of like iffy compliance crap going on. And we ultimately are really at odds with the government for which this is still federally illegal. So there are a lot of opportunities for us to be sort of stopped in our tracks at any given point. You know, fully licensed, compliant businesses have been raided at gunpoint and kind of like held up for all the cash in the spot. Like it's some kind of, you know, traditional stick up for things like fees, and, you know, just simple administrative transactions, you know, when no other industry is ever going to face that kind of treatment. You know, there's not a business that owes some fees to the city that they're going to come into like that. And that's, I mean, there are college students like working in those roles. I just think about all the people that were like completely traumatized by that experience when they're just at work. And I just can't fathom. And that's the same. I mean, we're talking about the same city that denied a permit to hold this festival in the park, in the public park, which is surprising to a lot of people. And they question how we could have had such a permit denied. But do you think that the entity responsible for that would ever allow us to have such a party in the park? You know, maybe not yet. But like I said, somebody has to try and somebody has to fail.
Yeah.
That's right. Because without any movement, then there's no movement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, eventually the answer will be yes. And maybe it's an issue of, you know, the kickback not being so high enough yet for them to want to get involved. It's all very complicated. And I think that it's just about proving that this is more of an asset to a city like Los Angeles than it is a detriment, that it's something that is a true professional attraction. There are people from all over the country coming in for Green Street. There are brands based far out of Southern California, hardware brands. Like I said, there are a lot of non-cannabis, like auxiliary brands that are involved. Lots of like rolling papers, wraps, all sorts of things that aren't cannabis are involved. Apparel companies, lots of different things. So it's it'll be interesting to be part of the change. It's like so much quicker, like time moves faster in cannabis than it does in any other industry I've ever been a part of.
Wow.
Right, I'm going to Green Street.
Yeah, exactly. We're taking a trip to LA next month. No, I wish.
You're in.
I wish I could be there. Physically going to be in Minnesota working. That's sad. But next year, when the second one comes,
we might have something brewing for the fall. We'll see.
There we go. You see,
coming soon to Orlando.
Well, idea, guys. That's truly like the vision, is that this becomes something that happens, you know, across the country. I mean, we take a lot of notes from South by Southwest. We want this not to be just cannabis. It's like a lifestyle and like a culture event and a place to celebrate all of the other industries that intersect with cannabis, because so many of them do, you know. It's really interesting, even the intersection with like cannabis and sports and athletes. I speak with so many people who are, you know, like high level athletes who are really serious cannabis advocates. And that's really cool to see too. I think that very soon more and more industries will be comfortable joining the conversation in a public way.
Right. It needs to be a gentleman and a lady sport rather than party, you know, like low brow.
Absolutely. Yes. And I think that Green Street does a lot to advance that charge, because it very much is a place of business, and I feel more productive there than I have ever felt anywhere else. And it also feels like what we're working on is deeply important and will do a lot of good for a lot of people. So
yeah,
for sure.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. This was, I don't want to say this was my favorite episode so far, but just having such fresh perspectives on things is really what we're aiming for on our podcast. And we're so excited to bring on more guests that are like you and past guests that we've had that just really do groundbreaking things in whatever they're doing in their lives. And you really taught us so much tonight. Mark, do you have any closing remarks or any questions for her before we let her go? Because we could talk all night.
I mean, yeah, like I could say that. I'll probably have 100 questions. I could go all night. Questions, I don't know. I would really mostly say that, like, this podcast, I think basically like our vision is to provide like insight into what's going on, so that people that are like learning right now can see what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, just like this is insight into, you know, times are changing, and they're going to be able to explain that and communicate that way differently. And I think that that's very important. And that's kind of what we're doing. So we're going to bring people on that have different insight into different things, so that they could, you know, influence the next generation, and also help people that are, maybe trying to figure out what's new. And that's kind of where I'm at too, like,
yeah,
I don't
what's
know.
new or what they
We're
want
always
to do.
learning.
Yeah.
A lot
We're always learning.
stuck right now. I think a lot of people feel stuck and they feel like, maybe like prior ways of life or their old lives weren't quite cutting it. And I really feel that way too. And that the angle that you're trying to take this with those kinds of perspectives and insights could really kind of give people a window into the types of lives that are possible. Because I think that being from, a rural town in Wisconsin, I was never able to answer like questions like, what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do? I never had any sort of answer for that, because the only that were presented to me were very basic occupations that I could not like myself falling within the confines of. And I think it's really important to, open yourself up to the possibility that if you can just think about the kinds of things that you want to do, if you just really become aware of them and just like convince yourself that that is an option, you can just do what you want to do actually every day, especially if it's more than one thing, especially if it's a lot of things. It's kind of like I've made this analogy. It's like turning a Rubik's cube you're not even looking at for a really long time, and then you look down and all of the colors are like lined up on the right sides.
Right.
It's like sooner or later everything is going to fall into place. If you have a few different things that you really love to do, eventually they're all going to tie in together in a way that's perfect. And it's unbelievable how I've been working on parallel things with so many different people in my life, like Kayla included, that are all now starting to fall in piece, like puzzle pieces to, the greater picture that we're all trying to create together. Like everybody's got their lane, everybody's got their thing, everyone has their role to play, and you just have to get really well acquainted with like what those strengths are and what you're trying to offer people, and be willing to prop yourself up and say that at any point in time. Like you got to be able to tell people what your goals are and what you want to see happen, and that's how you wake up and actually find yourself seeing them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that perfectly sums up the exact conversation we had earlier today before this podcast episode. Seriously, everything you said was spot on.
Man, we could not have said it better ourselves. We were chopping that up. You just wrote it like beautifully. That was awesome.
Well, we're on the same. Get it. We're having fun for sure.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Yes. Absolutely. Are we having fun? Hell yeah. Well, thank you, Tara. And we'd love to have you on the show again. We definitely want updates on how it goes for the next month. It's crunch time for you. Yeah. We're going to take a trip to LA. I mean, I'll be there in October. Like, I'm for sure coming. Like, a place better be ready for me October 1st, because I will be there whether it is or not. So and then we can bring Mark and Stephanie over with us.
I'll already be there on the street. I'll already be there. So.
Session, that's for sure.
We're gonna what I should do is find some grand footage of Tara trying to help me roller skate down Venice Beach.
Oh Lord. That was else.
I think I found it. I think I found some videos, and I'm a little better now, but it wasn't my finest moment.
I would like a still from that video, like as album art, just like a very very grateful image of a classic Venice scene.
Oh my gosh. So much fun to be had. But we will catch you guys on the episode. Wow. What was I trying to say?
Not be for the episodes. That's for sure.
We will catch you on the next episode of Are We Having Fun? And Tara, how can we find you on social media? Because anybody listening to this pretty much has social media. So
you can follow Aim and Fire at Aim and Fire LA, or I personally am Tara.T.No. It's like Tarantino with a few letters removed.
I love it.
Tara, Tara.T.No. And the Green Street Festival is at Green Street Fest if you want to check out the event, and at Green Street as well for the building. We're pretty easy to find, and there's some good press coverage if you want different perspectives on what's happening with us.
Nice. We love all perspectives. All press is press.
We do. We have to other perspectives.
Yeah.
Yes,
well,
absolutely. If you want to join us, I'd say if you got some insight, you have something you want to say, contact. Are we having fun?
yes. Oh yeah, I gotta plug our new handle because I just changed it. We are officially at AWHF Media on Instagram because dude, we're more than just the podcast.
Dude, we're off media because we're going off.
We're going off. Yeah, we are.
AWHF. Are we having fun?
Yeah, going off. Go off.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I like I'm doing like a shorthand like AF for aim and fire. So when I collaborate with brands, it's just like that brand AF.
As fuck.
So
yeah.
Like AF. That's
love it.
I love that. Oh, okay. That's definitely going to be the title.
Off and out.
Yeah.
Off as fuck. So anyway, yeah, you can follow us there. And yeah, we've got some other things going on because Mark here is a musical guru too. So
no, Kayla here's a music.
Okay, well, I do music, but I'm having too much fun with the podcast. So I'm fleshing out the media that we support on our company. So that I'm ready for all avenues in LA. But all right, I'm gonna sign us off here. And I finished my White Claw, so I don't know, it might be time to start another one. I'm just kidding. Gotta get up at 3:30 a.m. We got stuff to do.
Later.
Bye.
Later.